Now, a lot of people look at me really crazy when I say that. But again, as a lawyer, me and Dustin, we're trained to look at evidence. That's how according to the DEA, let's go to the evidence. In 2012, the last complete statistics we had, we seized, the U.S. seized 780,000 pounds of marijuana. It accounts for more than 70% of major drug seizures. Weed. It's the most seized drug in the country, and yet also the least harmful. We wage this war on drugs around the clock, and yet there's still, of course, massive quantities of drugs pouring into our country. So obviously, 2030, I mean, you know, Reagan started that about the year I was born, roughly, within a few years. So, I mean, my entire life, we've been waging the war on drugs, and I don't know, on some level, I think they're probably easier to get today than they were 36 years ago, so. All right, number 9. Legalization and regulation, not prohibition, is the way to, quote, think of the children. Because the argument we always get is, well, what about the kid? I mean, kids are going to start smoking dope. Kids are going to start whatever. Well, evidence. What do the numbers actually show us? That regulation and legalization does not actually condone the use of any illegal substances by children. It actually, in reverse, acts as a deterrent. Cigarette smoking in teens went way down whenever they said you got to be 18 to smoke. Why? Because most of the kids that, you know, weren't going to go to the trouble of doing that, but those that were still will. It's not the other problem is that the shady drug dealer that we've got at the end of the street, I'm not saying literally we here, I have no idea if there's a shady drug dealer at the end of the street or not, but the hypothetical shady drug dealer that might live in any particular location doesn't give a damn about checking for IDs or verifying sources or strains or anything else that actually makes regulation a good idea. I was in Seattle, let's see, I guess when they say short-term memory loss when you smoke weed, it's a reality. I don't remember when I was in Seattle, but I was in Seattle at some point this year. I want to say spring break. I was in Seattle. My wife and I flew up there, and it was my first time to ever be there. And of course, marijuana is legal up there. And one of the coolest things in the world is to go into one of these shops where, you know, just think of your favorite retail store, if there is one, or your favorite place to go eat lunch or dinner. And you know, why is it your favorite place to go shop or give them your money? It's because, you know, they greet you with a smile, because they know their product, because they're going to help fulfill your needs. And it was just amazing going into these places and having this plethora of options laid out before you, and all you had to do was tell them kind of what you were in the mood for, what you wanted, and man, you had a bag ready to go, and you don't have to worry about it being illegal. It was just amazing. And honestly, I felt a lot better smoking stuff that I knew was from a, you know, particular, not brand, I guess, but a particular farm or a particular area of the state, versus hoping that my friend gets me something good. So, again, I think legalization, and again, so we really think that number 9 there, legalization and regulation is just better overall. It's safer. If we're really worried about protecting the kids or the consumer in general, we would be legalizing and regulating it, not allowing it to pour over illegally and unregulated into our country. All right, number 8. It is a waste of law enforcement manpower, especially in Texas, where we border Mexico, to focus on the quote-unquote crime of possessing marijuana. Each marijuana arrest, I did not know this until I prepared for this. Each marijuana arrest costs taxpayers around $10,000. That's something we should be telling our politicians every single time we talk to them. And if we haven't, every letter we should say, oh, and by the way, stop wasting my 10 grand every time we arrest somebody for marijuana. It takes 5, 10 different authorities to have to coordinate efforts. It takes all of this paperwork and all types of unnecessary man hours and tax dollars.
I brought a bag.
Quick statistic of why we think that. Texas in 2011, there were 70,000 pot-related arrests. 98% of those 70,000 pot-related arrests were for just the possession of it. During the same time period as those marijuana arrest, 90% of burglaries and 88% of motor vehicle thefts went unsolved. Now, I know you can find a statistic to pretty much back up any position you want to take, but we found that was very, very, very relevant to why it, even if morally you're on one side or the other, or even if health-wise you're on one side or the other, that's another reason why, again, regulation and legalization and taking our, our police officers and other law enforcement personnel out of that situation and able to focus on the crimes that matter. That's what we need. Number 7, prohibition, and this I think we all know too. This is something that this one really just kind of is pretty common sense. Prohibition hands over all sale, distribution, and what little regulation might actually exist into the hands of violent drug cartels from other countries and even from within our own. And of course, with that country being our next door neighbor, that's even more relevant to us Texans. We are literally subsidizing the drug cartels by not legalizing and regulating marijuana. Number 6, Texas and the United States as a whole regularly diverts funds from social welfare programs in order to enforce prohibition. This was one I didn't know either until I really started digging into this. And it's especially relevant in Texas. This is why. Texas is home to 1 in 11 children in the U.S. I didn't know that. 1 in 11 kids in the U.S. live in Texas. There has been a 47% increase in poverty in the homes of these kids between the years of 2000 and 2011. Unemployment, underemployment, et cetera, yet we're still use billions of dollars to enforce prohibition instead of helping what the actual problems in this country are, like poverty and things of that nature. How is it justifiable then, is the question, to literally take food from the mouths of children in Texas in order to keep people from smoking a freaking plant? It just doesn't make any sense. We literally take money, we rob Peter to enforce prohibition, and we shouldn't be doing that. All right, number 5, Texas's education system is a mess, and I think we all know that, especially if you're from Beaumont. Even here locally, it's been a real rough decade for the school district. Our roads are crumbling, funding is slashed every time we turn around. We could use those tax dollars. If we see what's happened in Colorado, we see what's happened in Seattle, we see what's happened in the other, I think the latest count, I don't remember. How many states is it legal recreationally now in?
I know, Oregon.
8 states now. And I think somewhere around the lines of 23 or 26 is the latest number I heard where it's legal on some level or form, medically or otherwise. 30 now. It's changing. It's great that these numbers are getting higher and higher. But if we look at the results of what has happened in those states, A, use has not increased, B, illegal importation and exportation has decreased, especially violent importation and deportation. But most importantly to Texas, a state where we lack a lot of funds for costly programs like education, like child welfare programs, and where we have a lot of the country's kids, we could use those tax dollars. And Colorado and Washington State both have now got 2 or 3, 4 years under their belt of sustained big dollar tax revenues resulting from the legalization and regulation of recreational marijuana. We could use that money here. And that is something that we actually have, ironically enough, a couple of Republican representatives right now in the Texas state legislature that are actually pushing for some of the weed light regulations that are being asked to be put in place in regards to the growing of cannabis and other low THC but high CBD content growth and other things like that. And the good news is that this is not a partisan issue. You don't have to be a Democrat to be pro-weed. You don't have to be a Republican to be pro-weed. You just have to be an American or a Texan, in my opinion, to be pro-weed. And so, again, talk to your friends and neighbors. Talk to your politicians. Tell them that what we need are those tax dollars. Instead of spending $10,000 per weed arrest, we need to be making that money, saving that money in our criminal justice system and giving it back to our people. Number 4. And this one's kind of cool too, and I think everybody here would agree with this, but I didn't realize, I knew the nation statistic was this, I did not know it was this way in Texas. Most Texans actually favor marijuana legalization on some form. As a matter of fact, the last poll that we could get on, and this was conducted by the Marijuana Policy Project, so I can't guarantee it wasn't a slightly biased poll, but nonetheless, 58% was the number they came out with after they polled their group. 58% of Texans support outright legalization and regulation. So, again, obviously it's not a conservative progressive issue. It's not a blue or red issue. This is an issue that most Texans can get behind, and I just think the biggest problem is that we're just not loud enough about it, probably because we're enjoying, you know, consuming the product and not really too worried about what they're doing in Austin. But if we do, you know, make a lot of noise about it and let them know, I do think that that change will come. Three on the list, coming down to one. Economic stimulus does not come via packages or pleas for out-of-state businesses to move to Texas, and I preface it with that long phrase because our previous governor, you know, begging a lot of companies to come to Texas and didn't do a horrible job at that, but that's not the only way to grow Texas. It also comes by way of small business job creation. And again, if you look in Colorado and if you look in Washington State, where we now have multiple years of the legalization of marijuana, and California, it is an amazing small business opportunity at the local level. It creates hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs, ranging all the way from the low end of the spectrum, entry-level jobs, to middle class and even high wage earning jobs. So, again, if we're really going to be serious about growing Texas, if that's the excuse, or if that's, you know, what some politician you're talking to or you see on TV says he wants to do, this would be an easy, fast lane way to get there. Number two, the most dangerous thing about marijuana is the fact that it's illegal. And that's the second most important reason we think that we should be legal in Texas. It's just not dangerous. Not in the sense that it needs to be illegal. We thought we'd quote a public celebrity on this one, somebody that we all probably recognize the name of. Dr. Sanjay Gupta actually came out recently in support, I say recently, in the last few years, in support of the legalization of marijuana, and actually said, quote, he wanted to apologize for his role in misleading the public. A statistic to back that up, interestingly enough. Someone in the United States dies every 19 minutes from a prescription drug overdose. Every 19 minutes. Just in the time we've been here, I guess that's about an hour and a half that I've been here, you know, that's 3, 4, 5 people. And as far as we could search, and I mean, we dug as deep as we couldn't find not one reported death, accidental or otherwise, as a result from the consumption of marijuana. Just couldn't find it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a story out there of somebody driving high like they shouldn't be and getting hurt. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a result of actually consuming the drug. It's just not there. Yet what do? We keep pushing for all of these prescription medications to be, you know, passed around like candy, and we don't want anybody to touch marijuana, despite all of the research that we have, and growing body of research that shows the medical benefits as well as just general benefits of a little ganja every now and then. But the number one reason why we think Texas should legalize marijuana is Jeremy's story. Because people suffering from medical issues should not have to risk jail time to obtain treatment. It's just that simple. Our Constitution is smarter than that. Our founders were smarter than that. George Washington grew hemp, smoked marijuana. Thomas Jefferson, at least from reading his biographies, would sit on his back porch and, quote, enjoy a good, I can't think of the word, pipe of hemp is what he would say. So unless he was smoking some really shag nasty stuff, I think Thomas Jefferson was probably smoking the good stuff, especially if he was as good of a farmer as we think he was, or as he, you know, writes about it, things of that nature. But anyway, so it's just not fair to people who can get the relief they need from pain, the relief they need from seizures, the relief they need from whatever it is that they're seeking relief from. It is simply unacceptable in the country that says that we celebrate freedom to say, well, I'm sorry, you can drink a beer until you pass out and kill yourself. You can drink cigarettes until you have lung cancer and die. You know, you can do all of these things. But for your back pain or for your seizures or for whatever it is, you got to take Oxycontin or you got to take this, because if you take weed, you're going to jail. That's just BS, and that's not America, and that's not what America should be. And so I encourage all of y'all to talk to a friend, talk to a politician, talk to a neighbor. Don't be scared to tell people that you support the legalization of marijuana. One of the biggest just things that raises the hair on my neck, boils my blood, is whenever I'm out in public or I'm talking to friends and family, and or I'm talking to a judge. Think divorce law, think custody law. People are always trying to come up with a trump card to win custody, and it's, oh, he smokes dope. You know, just get him drug tested, Judge. There's going to be marijuana in there. I'm telling you, there's going to be marijuana in there. And without fail, I've yet, even the older judges, even the quote-unquote, you know, old-fashioned, you know, kind of judges will pull me aside and say, I don't really give a rat's patoot if the guy's smoking marijuana, but I'm a judge, and publicly it's illegal in Texas, and that's the position we have to take. Well, it just kills me, because I always tell them, well, Judge, I mean, that's really your call. Use your judgment. That's what we're paying you to do. That's what we elected you to do. You don't have to say that, you know, we're not here to convict the guy of possession or not of marijuana. We're here to decide who, you know, where the child should be, things of that nature. So keep that in mind. We do have a growing public consensus, but we just, in my opinion, just have to be louder about it. That's what it's going to take. The loudest, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so we just have to be loud and vocal about it. Keep having events like this. Keep being willing to fight like Jeremy was in the court system, and that's where me and Dustin enjoy focusing a lot of our efforts. But there's no wrong way to fight about it. Just being vocal, being public, and being supportive is really probably the hardest part of the battle. So thank y'all very much. Again, Jonathan Stovall, and I'm glad y'all had a great festival. I hope it ends well, and I know we've got some other great speakers to look forward to. So thank y'all for supporting this. I'm going to pass the mic on and stand back up.